Hey guys, and welcome back to this episode of The Sunday Cook. Gosh, has January been not only the longest month, but also the longest month? Well, if you're looking for something easy and cost efficient to make in the kitchen, then why not try my sausage stew? So you'll need a can of tomatoes, you can use chopped tomatoes, some red onion, and most of these ingredients are ingredients that people have in their kitchen. A chili, mine is starting to shrivel up, so it really needs using. A couple cloves of garlic, and then in my herb box I've got some thyme. What else do I have in there? I've got some rosemary and some parsley that is starting to fade. Actually, I need to really use that. Moving right along. I had this one giant carrot just sitting in the bottom of my crisper in the refrigerator, so I'm using that. I've got some chorizo that needs using too, and that's going to give this dish some really big, bold, punchy flavor. So I'm going to start off and get my veg prepared. Sorry, can't talk. So I've got my red onion that I'm just going to dice. I'm not really it's a stew, right? So it doesn't need to be exact. As you can see, I'm not measuring anything. What you see on this video is the quantities I'm using for this dish. And actually this dish is serving 2 people, so my partner and I. I'm finally chopping my garlic, and because this is a stew, don't be too pedantic about how you're chopping it, as long as it's roughly the same size. I'm laying down on my wooden board another board, and that's just for my raw meat, because you don't want to what is it called? Cross-contaminate. And I'm using store-bought sausages, okay? And you can do this. You can slice them into equal portions, so they're roughly, bite size. Or what you could do, if you had a little bit more time, is to take them out of their case and then roll them into little balls, kind of like meatballs. So I'm using this chorizo because it's gonna give some more flavor to my stew. Chorizo is full of paprika, some spices, and other things like garlic, so it's really gonna elevate. I feel it's going to elevate the overall flavor profile, and it's going to give that touch of smokiness from the paprika. So I've peeled the outer layer. Just check, because sometimes, I tend to peel it because sometimes they toughen in the cooking process, but sometimes they're really thin and you just don't need to. Peeling my carrot. It's the one and only carrot I had in my refrigerator, and it's starting to, it's still okay. I'm just taking away the skin, giving it a good peel, nothing too complicated, and then I'm going to slice them in half and then diagonally, just because. There's no particular reason. I'm just going with the flow, I feel like cutting it in diagonals. I'm gonna do it in diagonals. And then my herbs. So now with the herbs, so the parsley I'm just gonna roughly chop it. There you go. And the rosemary, so because it's gonna go into the stew, I don't really want big chunks of rosemary in it. So I am going to pay a little bit more attention on the rosemary and chop it up nice and fine, so that you don't end up eating large pieces of rosemary. I don't know what they're called. Are they called rosemary spears? I don't know. Anyways, I'm not a professional. I just like cooking. I wanted to also give this dish a little bit of a heat punch, and also I had a chili that needed using. So there you go. Here are all of my ingredients, all together, ready to go, and let's get cooking. So I'm just gonna give my surface a nice little wipe and get my hob going. So you don't need to use a lot of oil, and actually, because I wanted to get this dish ready, prepared, and on the table, ready to eat within the half an hour or just under, I'm using my wok. So I've only put like the equivalent of half a teaspoon of olive oil just so that things don't stick. But the chorizo actually emits a lot of oil from the fat, and that oil will be flavored. So that's a lot of flavor in there. So great stuff. I'm adding the other sausages. Giving them a little bit of a brown. Actually, with the tomatoes, it doesn't matter if it actually browns. You're not looking for it to brown particularly. You are basically just making sure that the meat is cooked. I've added my onions, and I'm going to toss them around. And at this stage, now if your pan gets a little bit too dry, what you can do is you can just add a drop of water just to loosen things up. And then I'm just adding the rest of my ingredients. So something that is a little bit of a trick, and what you can do also is, at this stage, add your tomatoes, so don't forget that. By the time the carrots, so this is why the carrots need to be sliced in equal sizes, so that they all cook at the same time. So what you want is your carrots to be al dente, so for example, for skewer to go right through easily and pulled out easily, but you don't want the whole thing to go, you don't want your carrots to go too much. So by the time the carrots are done, the entire dish should be finished. Throughout the entire cooking process, I've, oh, there goes some wine. A glass for me and a glass for the dish. And so throughout this entire process, I've actually been cooking on a medium to high heat. Oh, yes. So if you happen to have some good quality, organic stock that you've made over the weekend using, leftover bones or something, then good for you. But if you're an everyday person just like me and you just didn't have time, I always have a stash of ready-to-use stock cubes or stock gels like this one in my repertoire of spices and stocks and things that are easy. So I've just used one of those gel ones. Be careful when you're seasoning, because like the one that I'm using is one that is low sodium, but if you don't check, and if it's a stock that is high in sodium, just taste before you add any salt, because otherwise it might be really salty. So usually in the stew, certainly in Britain, I find like people love serving them with what are they called, dumplings. And I'm gonna make another recipe video on dumplings, because I love dumplings, but I didn't have time. So I had this loaf of bread. It's actually kind of like a cross between a sourdough and a whole wheat bread, and I just cut two fairly large chunks, large slices, and then I sliced them again into sort of cubes. So basically giant croutons. So in my roasting tray, I've drizzled a little bit of light olive oil, and then I'm going to season the tray with some black pepper and some sea salt. You can, at this point, if you wanted to add other things, so you could add some paprika, the sweet variety, to give it a bit of a contrast against the smoky one, and maybe some oregano. Feel free. And then I've just tossed my bread, giant crouton thingies in my pan, and then popped it in the oven. So by the time your stew is done, then your croutons will be done as well. Just keep an eye. So there's something that I tend to do. I don't know if it's I don't know. So I learned about this a while ago. Sometimes you hear people putting sugar in tomato-based sauces. Here I've used an onion relish or an onion jam, And I don't know if you just caught me, but I checked my carrot. My carrot's nice and soft, but it's still al dente, and that just means it's ready to serve. So there you go, my sausage stew, something very cost efficient with utilizing ingredients that most people have in their refrigerator or in their pantry, and it's an easy dinner, perfect midweek, perfect for the winter. Enjoy. I hope you really liked this episode of the Sunday Cook. If you did, don't forget to subscribe for more exciting recipes, and follow us on Instagram or on Facebook or on both. And don't forget to hit the thumbs up. I look forward to seeing you the next time. Take care. Bye bye.